Shabbat Shalom. It's Rabbi David Baron of Temple of the Arts with the Torah Talk. Before I begin, I'd like to tell you about a couple of things I've been working on that I hope you can share with your family and friends. One of them is a wonderful personal growth spiritual experience called Midnight Confessions and Corrections. It comes from an ancient practice in the Kabbalah, but I think you might find it very powerful. It's a spiritual experience, and you go to the website midnightcc.org, and you'll be able to enjoy the experience of a midnight confession and a correction in your personal life. The other is a webinar that I'm conducting on Sunday with two fantastic people, Dr. Drew Pinsky, who's a brilliant psychologist, and Marianne Williamson. And it's going to be about keys to emergence, how to come through this coronavirus pandemic and emerge better and stronger than ever. What are the keys to resilience? So please check that out. Check your email. You'll be getting e-blasts about the webinar this Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And also check out Midnight Confessions by going to the website midnightcc.org. This week's Torah portion is a rich field of many examples of what we can learn from the Torah. I think it's one of the most powerful, and I hope you'll find that to be true. And if you'd like to, please follow the Torah reading in your Bible at home, Exodus chapter 30, and you'll see it's one of those great portions with so many interesting insights into life, into human nature, into our connection with God. The Torah portion describes the episode. Panic-driven Israelites, recently freed slaves, are in the wilderness. They come to the foot of Mount Sinai. They wait for Moses, who's been gone for 40 days, and they fear that he's dead, or they fear that he has abandoned them. And so they demand of Aaron to fashion a golden calf that they worship because God has left them and Moses has left them. And in that anxiety-produced state, they commit this horrible sin of apostasy. But the powerful lesson here is not that they committed the sin, but that they recognized it was a sin and that they atoned for the sin. As I said, this is the first Yom Kippur in recorded history. After the sin, the Israelites atoned, they corrected their actions, they accepted a second set of tablets as the first, and they said, we will do and we will obey and we will follow God's laws. And so they were able to correct. And I think there's a lesson in that for all of us, that we know there is an opportunity or a mechanism for correcting whenever we've done something wrong, whenever we've committed a sin or an error in judgment, when we've wounded someone else, whether we did it out of anxiety or fear, or whether we did it not thinking. I think for many of us to know that there's a way to heal and repair and correct. You know, in the laws of physics, there's the law of entropy, which means systems sooner or later break down. And we're human beings. Sooner or later, we break down, we make a mistake. We're not perfect, we're human. And to know that we can correct our errors and our wrongs is very important, and that we'll receive forgiveness from our Creator. And if we turn to one another, anyone we may have hurt, and ask for forgiveness, then most of the time we'll get it. So I think that's one of the powerful lessons of the Torah reading. The other is the story of God talking to Moses. The Torah says God spoke to Moses face to face, panim el panim, ka'asher yedaber ish el re'ehu, as a person would talk to their close friend, heart to heart. That speaks about a deep, personal, confidential conversation, one that's intimate and close. And when we speak to God and pour out our hearts to our Creator, beseeching God for God's help, beseeching God for an appreciation of life, we do so in that deep level, like we would with a friend that we trust, a confidant, a very close friend who we're able to share with whatever is on our heart or in our mind, whatever is troubling us. That intimacy and closeness of communication is a very powerful lesson of how we should communicate ideally with one another. And so the divine encounter, paralleled by an encounter person to person, between people, especially between people we trust, who we consider closest to us. Now that example is another important one because it says to us that we're able to have those kinds of conversations with our God and with one another, that we're able to heal and repair anything that's broken, anything that we may have broken. To know that gives one confidence and gives one a recognition that the key to resilience is the ability to come through those times by taking those steps of healing and repair. That's part of the great legacy of this week's Torah portion, and I hope you will take it to heart and grow from it and learn from it and share it, teach it to others. That's our mission as a Jewish people, to be a light to humanity, to bring the light of the Torah to every human being. So all of us share in that responsibility, and I hope that each and every one of you will share it with those whom you know, those who are part of your circle of friends and family. And I want to wish you health and happiness and well-being on this Shabbat and throughout the year. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to speak for just a moment to all of you about a very important decision that came down from Israel's highest court this past week. Finally, after years and years of exclusion and derision, Israel's high court accepted the conversion of men and women to Judaism conducted by Reform and conservative rabbis as valid. You know, for many years, Israel's Orthodox rabbinate maintained a stranglehold over conversion. And so many people who were Jewish were not recognized as Jewish because their conversion was conducted by a conservative rabbi or a Reform rabbi. Finally, these other streams of Judaism are beginning to gain recognition. And that's so important because Judaism isn't monolithic. It has streams and it has variation and it has texture. And so for us, those of us Jews who are not Orthodox, it's really important to know that this event has finally occurred after years and years of exclusion. So we're hopeful that this won't be overturned, and I think it's a very important component. Now, some of you I know support some wonderful Jewish organizations that are founded on Orthodoxy. I need to let you know that those organizations and their rabbis may be very opposed to this recognition. So you should just be aware of that. But in the meantime, we can be very proud and very hopeful that other aspects of Judaism, other interpretations of our faith, are finally being accepted within the state of Israel.